Hi there. Before the recording begins, I wanted you to know that there were some minor technical difficulties at the beginning of this debate. Until around the 6-minute mark, the audio quality is rather lackluster. I was able to make a few improvements, but ultimately there was only so much I could do. On the bright side, after about 6 minutes, the audio returns to the usual quality for the remaining hour and a half. I hope you enjoy this week's debate, and thanks for listening.
Hello, we're gonna get started, so grab a beer, sit down. Grab a beer quicker, sit down. Yeah, I know, it's the best Okay, guys, please. Thank you. So this week we're going to do something a wee bit different, and we're going to start with the minutes, seeing as I forgot them last week. So I'll leave it up to Robbie to retrospectively pass the minutes from last week if he doesn't mind. So,
do you want to read them again?
Last week's today.
I'm not. From last week today.
Yes.
Oh,
It's your job.
yeah. Good evening, all in all. Hope we're all well. The 8th Ordinary Meeting of the 167th Session of the Literary and Scientific Society took place in the Senate Room on the 4th of February and was attended by 41 members. President Senate began proceedings by informing the House that we are fast approaching the Queen's Annual Trust IV, with thanks to our wonderful external convener, Ben Murphy, for all the wonderful... Shush. For all the wonderful that he's done to bring about our first IV in over 40 years. There's a lot of new faces in the room, and for those of you that don't know, we had a period in our society where, around 40 years ago or so, there was an incident whereby someone came to speak, clothes were removed, things were destroyed. So for around 40 years or so, we weren't really a thing, and we're just coming back into it. But you'll be glad to hear that we're back to full strength, sort of. Hello. Yes. Our school's competition is also fast approaching on the 24th of February, and we're looking for members to help out judge some of the debates. If you'd like any more information, you can contact our fantastic research officer, Mr. Lee. We're also looking for applications for council positions next year, the 168th session of the Letterific. If you're interested in throwing your hat into the ring next year, you can speak to myself or President Senate. Thanks.
Just quiet, please. Continue, Robbie.
Without further ado, President Senate announced the motion for the evening. This House would withdraw benefits from parents who refuse to vaccinate their children. Opening to the proposition was main speaker, Miss Evie Watts, who opened by stating that, in agreeing to speak that night, like so many women in the past, she had admittedly succumbed to Craig Miller's irresistible charm. Her words, not mine.
And the House spontaneously vomited.
She began by claiming the vaccinations are the medical equivalent of a modern miracle, yet nobody seems to appreciate this fact. Ms. Watts asserted unquestionably that it protects the population, using the example of the eradication of smallpox in the past. The Speaker then went on a tirade against so-called anti-vaxxers by reminding the House that the originator of the idea that MMR jabs can cause autism was lampooned and isolated by his peers before he was ultimately struck off. She concluded by stating that cutting benefits was the right way to go, as parents have a right to protect their children and that refusing vaccinations was a form of child cruelty. Finally, she stated that this method was being introduced in Australia, where time will show that it is the complete right course of action. Opening for the opposition was Mr. Johnny Finlay, who opened by stating that 3 fundamental truths about the rights of the individual, these being primarily that they exist, that rights are not necessarily in harmony, and finally, that we must decide which rights are prioritised within our society. This includes the parents' right to sovereignty over their children. He raised the issue of the slippery slope of denying benefits, that this may well lead to individuals being punished for their autonomous choices. Mr. Finlay concluded by stating that sacrifices must be made and that human ingenuity outweighs forced medical treatment. Continuing with the proposition was Main Speaker Arj Vora, who challenged the opposition's views on the rights of the individual, stating that every child in this country has a right to quality and longevity of life. Mr. Vora put it simply, stating that if parents are given this incentive to vaccinate their children, it will reduce health inequality. He stated that the motion was apt, given that lower socioeconomic groups are statistically culpable when it comes to leaving children unvaccinated. He concluded by saying that this wasn't about forcing anyone into anything, it was about justice and fighting inequality. The second speaker for the opposition was Mr. Sean Ferrer, who opened with a joke about the ban of vaccines, which frankly doesn't bear repeating. He claimed that the motion was classist and that people who don't vaccinate will be isolated within society, which would only lead to their opposition to vaccination being solidified. He asked the House to consider what was worse, an unvaccinated child or a hungry unvaccinated child. He concluded by stating that it would further demonise state benefits and the motion itself was self-defeating. Concluding for the proposition was Dr. Craig Miller, who opened by stating that this wasn't a political issue of left versus right, but that it was an issue of idealism versus pragmatism. He informed the House that the World Health Organization lists the top 2 things which we desperately need to reduce health inequality. Number 2 was sanitation, and number 1 was vaccinations. Mr. Miller asked the House to think how seriously we take proper sanitation and how a dangerous situation can become when it is neglected. So why don't we do the same towards vaccinations? He used the example of Jehovah's Witnesses being forced by hospitals to allow their children to receive blood transfusions as an example of where a similar policy was already in place. He concluded by stating that true justice for a child should outweigh any misplaced call for freedom. Concluding for the opposition, so the debate, was Ms. Emma Chadwick. She criticised the proposition's example of the Australian system of vaccinations as it has only just been introduced and could well be a complete failure. She went on to state that there is a real probability of real harm being done here if parents who don't vaccinate are further pushed to the fringe of society where their beliefs will be entrenched and then cemented. She concluded by saying that if the proposition had their way, the human rights of parents would be removed and that more education rather than more punishment is what's needed. Questions from the floor were heard from Mr. Finbar Rogers, Mr. Jeremy Mueller, Jamie Hanna, Mo Musa, Neville Cox, Jill McManus, Matt Wilkinson, Ryan Neal and Owen Mulholland. A vote on the personal opinion of the House with regards to whether or not parents who don't vaccinate their children should lose benefits was taken, which read 20 ayes, 5 nays and 7 abstentions. And finally, a casting vote based on a speaker's performance was taken, which read 19 ayes, 8 nays and 3 abstentions. May I take the minutes as read? Aye.
First announcement of the evening. You might wonder why, if you haven't heard, why all the alcohol and birthday cake and birthday party stuff is at the back. You might wonder why there's hummus and celery at the back. It's the better question. So Jem is a vegan, and I'm assuming that there are other vegans amongst us that donate birthday cake. So please keep it down. Thank you. Thank you. So so the celery and hummus and carrots are for vegans, pretty much. Feel free to enjoy it. So anyway, it is the Litterific's 166th birthday today. On 166, and it's also in brackets my sister's birthday as well, so she's here.
So have you sedated?
Okay, so moving on. I can figure out how to work this bell, it'll be run a lot more often.
Was the radio back?
No. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go for 3 suggestions from the box. I'm going to put this box down the back with all the drinks, so you've no excuse not to fill them in. Oh, okay. So the first suggestion is speakers should dress properly and wear their gowns in the proper fashion. I think I'm doing alright. Suggestion number 2. Oh, that's about the Halloween debate, I imagine. Okay, suggestion number 2. The Godkin debate. Yeah. Godkin debate was last semester. Dufferin debate is this semester speaker of the year. Pardon? Can I still win? No, you can't still win the Godkin debate. I believe that was no. And the last one is instead of sweets, tea, coffee, and biscuits. There's beer, cider, wine, soft drinks, water, Pringles.
It's 7:30
Far
for
away.
fuck's sake.
Okay, so as already mentioned before from last week, Literific IVs 27th, 28th of February. If you would like to sign up, and even if you have graduated, you're still an affiliate member of Literific, so we will be giving you free admission to the Literific IV, which is over a weekend, and there's I think like 30 teams or something. Ben is more. Yeah. So there's a few teams. So we do still need our volunteers for that, crash spaces for that, and just turn up if you're interested. And there's a social on Saturday night as well. So come on. Pardon? If you want to go to Kremlin, I believe it's Kremlin's the option. So what was it they said? The communist-themed gay bar?
Yes.
Is what it was. Yes.
May I ask, Mr. Murphy, for all of us that want to offer crash for debaters, what level of comfort do they require for sleeping arrangements?
A spike.
Slightly above the torture chamber, so if you have a reasonably flat floor, I think that's the prerequisite.
May I also ask, Mr. Murphy, how many young debaters did you ask me to fill into my living room earlier today?
I said 10, and
You said 12.
may or may not have said stack them like sardines.
Okay, so yeah, no level of comfort required. If you can offer crash to anybody, literally they will take bathrooms. They'll share beds. Within reason. If you can possibly offer anybody crash, it saves them from getting a hostel. Please keep it down. Secondly, is our skills competitions on the 24th of February. We do still need judges for that, and if you can spare a few hours during the day to help out, that would be great. They are great debaters, and they'll be applying for university as well. So come along, get them, try and come along, come to Queen, see Literific, and see what Literific debating is about. Thirdly, we've a debate next week. We haven't filled up with speakers yet, so it's about this house would open trans-only prisons. So if anybody's interested in that, please see one of the, I think I'm arranging that, and Lily, but Lily's not here. So any member of council, if you would like to speak on that motion. And we are also having our AGM for the replacement, for our council for next year. I'm not getting replaced. For our council for next year, so if you would like to run for any position, president, secretary, treasurer, internal convener, external convener, outreach officer, tech guy,
No, you don't run for tech guy.
We'll discuss that in the next motion. So if you would like to run for council, please put your name forward. And if you'd like to know more about it, please just speak to anybody on council. They will tell you. They should be able to know what their job position is. And I hate doing that. I really do. I feel like a teacher. So if you would like to run for council, 15th of March is our AGM, and we won't be having a debate that week, so that'll be like our big event this week. And again, there will be alcohol and probably no birthday cake or no salaries. So come for the alcohol and soft drinks. And we'll now move on to the tech guy amendment. You may have noticed this guy with the computer here every week. If you don't know already, our debates are live streamed and they're also on podcasts as well. So if you use iTunes or you don't, you can go and look up which specific debate you're in. If you want to hear anything, if you weren't in it, you want to hear the motion if you missed it, or if you're not here one week, you can listen to them back. And I think Calvin has cool thing where you can he's spliced the specific speaker. So if you only want to listen to yourself, you can only listen to your thing of that debate. And if you're one of those people that just believes what you believe in, then you can do that. So we are putting forward a constitutional amendment, which I believe Calvin will speak about.
Should I go now?
Yeah.
Yes. First of all, and this is not me correcting you. I've called it tech guy over and over again. Tech officer. Just the reason why I bring that up is because the reason why I'm making this is because literally no one wants to take over from me. I don't want to stay here forever. I mean, I really do want to stay here forever, but I can't. So I put, should I explain how this works briefly? I put this amendment to the council, and then the council said that was okay, so now it goes to the house. Basically, I'll read it out briefly, and then you vote on whether to pass it or not. If you have any questions, you can ask whenever I'm done, and if you oppose it, vote against it. If I've gotten something
I think they know how voting works.
Then right. So amendment. Couple of minor amendments. I have added section 2, part 6. The council added technology officer to the Section 7 elections. The members of the General Council of the Society, with the exception of the Technology Officer, shall be elected by ballot by the ordinary members of the Society, blah, 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 blah. Basically, Technology Officer will not be elected. It will be appointed because I at least believe that you need to, whoever's doing it needs to be able to do it. They can't just speak very well and be convincing and whatnot. So that's why I think it should be appointed. If anybody objects, then you can make your point afterwards. Amendment to the order of the elections, just because it was outreach was never added last time. This was amended, so I stuck that in there. The technology officer shall be appointed by the council. The appointee must be approved by the outgoing technology officer and at least 2/3 of the remaining council members. And the technology officer must be appointed no later than the next council meeting following the annual general meeting. Can I just inform you? Is anybody actually going to vote against this, or because there's a fair bit to read out, and I'm guessing most people don't want to hear me read this for the next 5 minutes. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I have questions on that. In terms of, I agree with it being appointed by council because obviously elections take a long time. But can people put themselves forward to council?
Yes.
So it would work like that.
Ideally, what would happen would be whoever's interested would tell me or whoever takes over for me that they're interested, and then they would follow me around at the beginning of the bit to see what I do, and then at the end I would say, okay, sorry, you too, but this guy is awesome and he's getting appointed. You two go run for something. So basically, technology officer shall have safekeeping for the recording device and any other technology. He shall be or she shall be responsible for the maintenance of websites and non-social media accounts, and then they're specified. They shall be responsible for ensuring that the recordings are edited and released to the public in a timely manner. And they'll be responsible for live streaming if they want. Live streaming is a bit of a pain in the backside. I almost literally want to kill myself right now. It is so bad. It is such a pain. Thank you, Rob. Thai bros. So yeah, that is not required by the Constitution. It's an optional thing. So yes, I think that's pretty much everything. So I've been doing this for just over 2 years now. And it was done by half a year before that, as far as I'm aware. By another guy. It was done by Queen's Radio for 2 years, and then I convinced the council to move it in-house so that the Litter has complete control over what happens. And I convinced them to get this recorder, so they actually own their own recorder. So I think it's important that this is an actual position because I honestly, not meaning to make myself sound awesome, but I don't think anybody's going to volunteer, just, going to go, yeah, sure, I'll do this for no reason once I leave. So I think it's important that there's an actual constitutionally mandated role. So yeah, did I miss anything?
Okay, yeah, the only thing I'd like to add to that is that the tech officer will have a vote on council, so yes. You're not just here doing it for no reason. People do listen to the streaming, people do listen to the podcast afterwards, and you will have a vote on council, so you will be in council meetings, you'll have a say on what happens, and I think that's about it.
Can I just say that even though I am, at the moment, this close to being terribly suicidal, it is really fun. It is really fun. It's really not that hard. The hardest part probably would be showing up to the debates every week. But if you're going to be doing that anyway, or if you're going to be here for most, it's fine for you to arrange for another council to do it 1 week. But being able to put the podcast up every week and creating a lasting record of what happens is a deeply fulfilling experience. I would recommend it. So to vote?
Yeah, we'll go
should it be
first.
second? Somebody second.
Yeah, so somebody second.
What question? Sorry. Question. Ben, Lee.
Oh, 2 seconds.
Excuse me.
Questions for it? Anyone? Yes, Johnny.
Well, just on a point of order, I seem, please genuinely correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall it was standard practice to only debate and vote on constitutional amendments at the AGM.
No, there is a thing where if it's put to the council first, the council can pass it and then.
Whereas things for the AGM can be brought up on the evening. Then
that's fine. Just, of course.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh no, just secondly, I just feel like somebody should ask if the position is appointed and not elected. Just what is the rationale behind them having a vote on council then?
Because they're doing a lot of work and it would be nice to have some sort of reward. I've been doing this just because for 2 years. I'm a weird guy, so that's fine for me. But I need someone to take over for me, so I need some sort of incentive. And it's not entirely unreasonable. I do a fair bit of work, so I think it's reasonable, honestly.
Yes, Harry?
Just a quick question. Is it
council that appoints it, like makes the decision, or is it just the incumbent? Like,
the technology officer shall be appointed by the council. The appointee must be approved by the outgoing technology officer and at least 2/3 of the remaining council members.
Yes.
Supermajorities.
And then, yes.
It's sort of related
Can you stand up, please, Peter?
Yes, sorry. It's sort of related to Phil's question. I definitely agree that the tech officer needs a vote on council. I think that's very important because it needs to work. But my one thing is, everyone else on council who has a vote has had some sort of input from the House. So would there be any way to include in the amendment that the House would be able to say, yes, we agree with the council's decision, even if it was just a hands-up thing, not to have them vote on it, like it would still be the council appointing it, but just so that the House would get some sort of yes, because that's what everyone else in council has.
That seems reasonable, but in fairness, the other 7 members of the council are elected, so they're the voice of the people, I suppose. They would be making the decision. Also, not gonna lie, time is running out. I need someone to replace me. I need to start searching now, so I really like to get this passed. So I can.
Would anybody like to second Sophie's proposed amendment to it that once the tech officer was ratified by the council, that the House would have a sort of majority say?
I'll second it.
Second that, and yes?
Just the choice between that and Ron, like we have nominations, I guess, but nobody's going to vote for Ron because that would be the
Well, Ron's always an option. As seen by the SE elections 2 years ago.
The problem is that then, if there's more than one person who wants to be appointed, you then appoint the one person, but then the House puts them down, so then it becomes an election by proxy. It's like, okay, happy this guy, so we move on to number 2. So then the House votes on that guy, so then number 3. I really don't think having being elected first is a good idea.
I mean,
it's just me saying.
Okay.
So
Yes,
Can I just say, I think you're actually massively understating the difficulties of electing a chief officer. Like a treasurer requires specialist skills, other roles require specialist skills. Like in most instances, there's probably only one person. It's probably easier than just elect them at the AGM like everyone else.
True, but speaking from experience, I was a technology officer at a previous institution, and the guy who took over for me was grossly incompetent. So, I stand by entirely my amendment.
Okay, so your proposed amendment would be that they're just elected along at the AGM along with everyone else? Okay. Would anyone second that proposed amendment? To being elected rather than appointed?
Fair for us to propose incompetent as well.
No? Okay. Yes?
I agree with that.
I'll just be the unofficial name.
Okay, so shall we move to a vote with the proposed? Yes, Johnny.
Sorry, well, I just.
These amendments do take a while, so.
I just want, in the interest of formalising it to people, to have a say, can I propose an amendment which would remove the tech officer vote on council? Just because I'm not satisfied personally with that.
Yes. Okay.
Can I ask?
Does anyone want to say?
Can I ask Johnny a question? Why would anybody do it then? Why? Like, did they have no power in society?
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Also, I was doing it as part of Queen's Radio. I was doing it for the radio.
That's it. Okay, that's a perfectly valid amendment. Would anybody like to second that amendment to the proposed amendment of the Constitution that the tech officer wouldn't have a vote on council if they were appointed?
Because I can see the value of having it of having the position of having it be appointed is just that one aspect. So I would like the chance to vote on it.
Okay.
As amended.
But if they were elected, would be the vote's fine? Just to clarify.
If they
were elected, their vote on council is fine.
No, I think probably they should be appointed because it's a technical position.
Okay.
If they were elected, I suppose yes, the vote on council would be fine. But that's rolling 2 amendments into one.
Okay. Yes, sure. We'll go.
Can I just do I stand up?
Yes.
Can I just make a point about the fact that even in vibrant democratic societies, there are positions that are appointed by executives, and the executives have been democratically elected, but the positions that are appointed, I'm not sure if it's the case, but I think vice president in the US is also not chosen by the public. This is standard procedure in a democracy, that you don't get a say or vote about everything. This is not a direct democracy. We're simply trying to get things moving. So.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, may I respond to Claire's point? We on council have had problems with that before, though, where we have made executive decisions and there have been people who have said, no, this is a democratic society and you shouldn't do that, and that's the only reason I'm saying give the House a vote, because as a previous council member, it's something that we have had people tell us to do before, but that's just me as a previous council member, maybe that's not how the society currently sits.
Okay.
Well,
So,
I would just say,
yes, so we have to take
I would
amendments.
just say in refutation to that, if the House voted on such an amendment to the Constitution, it could not later be struck down as being. Yes.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, your response.
I didn't. You asked. You asked for seconds for Johnny's amendment twice, and no hands went up. So can I ask that we move to a vote on the amendment and Sophie's amendment?
Okay, so moving to a vote that the tech officer will be appointed.
First of all, pass the Constitution. Pass this amendment,
Yes,
and then
okay.
ask if we want Sophie's to be
So, can we have a vote on those that agree with the
creation of the tech officer?
creation of the tech officer as an official council role? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
And all those against say nay.
Nay.
No, that's okay. Okay.
I heard unanimous.
Okay. And then the amendment to the
So that's passed. So hooray!
tech officer. Yay. Okay, so the amendment to what has been put in the Constitution is that they will be elected by council. Is that
No. House can overrule.
okay?
Depends what House would do.
Yeah.
So the vote is on that the tech officer will be appointed by council, but the House will have the sort of
And
final.
they'll have to be approved by the House.
Okay. They will
Sorry.
be appointed by council and approved by the House.
Aye.
All of those in favour say aye. And all those against say nay.
Please tell me.
I was on a.
I think it was nay. Okay, sorry, we'll go. Okay. All those in favour say aye.
The guy who wrote it strongly opposed the
Okay, 16. All those against say nay.
Nay. Raise them high, guys. Come on.
Calvin, you can't like lobby that. That's not how it works.
Agree with him.
Okay, 17, 14. Okay, so so there will be
I'm so sorry. On a point of order,
yes.
when it's this close, can we confirm everyone in this room is actually a member of House of
Oh yeah.
When it is that close.
That's a fair point.
Okay.
Where do we play the system?
It'll be quicker, okay? All of those who would like to vote and can vote in the election, please take out your letterific membership cards. If you don't have one, you don't get a vote, but you can speak to Robbie at the end.
There will never be an easier election than necessary. Yeah, but you know, where's that?
Have you hit card?
I forgot I have money. Quickly. I have money. Take them for now.
I finished my election process.
Okay.
Show me in the top.
Nobody's cards across the room. Okay, so all of those who can vote, we're voting. Okay, so we're voting for the amendment to the tech officer rule, if I have got this correctly, that they will be appointed by the council and ratified by the House. Is that correct? Okay. All of those in favour, please raise your membership cards and say aye.
Aye. Actually, have a membership card, but I'm.
16, just last time.
Just how much a tune on your head?
And all of those against, say nay, please. Okay, and all those abstaining or yes? Okay, so the tech officer will be appointed by the council.
Hooray! That's over!
Okay, so next we will move briefly on to private member business, which is the fun part of the evening. I have a really expressive face as well, so it doesn't look like you have a bit resting face bringing this bell up, does it? Okay, private member business. This is a chance for you to bring up any topic in the news, One at a time, please. Any mini debate you'd like to have? Anything about council? Yes, Ben Murphy, please stand up.
I'd like to propose a motion that this House would sack Jeremy Hunt.
Okay.
Are we all unanimous agreement on that? Yeah.
Okay. Anybody like to comment on Ben's motion? Anyone like to second Ben's motion?
Second.
Okay. Just go straight to a vote. Okay. All of those who would like to record in the minutes that the letter would indeed sack. All of those who would like to record in the minutes that the letter would indeed sack Jeremy Hunt, please raise your hand and say aye. Get it in a higher group. No. 16. And all of those against sacking Jeremy? 17. All of those against sacking Jeremy Hunt, please raise your hands and say nay. Okay. And all of okay, Craig Miller cannot vote in abstention. And all those abstaining on whether we would sack Jeremy Hunt?
Shame resign.
5? 6? Sorry. Okay, easy.
A damning review.
Any other private member business? Yes?
I'd like to move this House to behead Jeremy.
Seconded.
Can I put forward a motion for a slippery slope argument? That was seconded?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Any objections, I suppose?
Also, yes, I object as well.
We're going to have to go for a vote if you're...
I can speak in support.
Okay.
My objection to it would be that could be construed in a court as criminal intent. So I would advise the House accordingly.
That's a fair point. Would you like to retract your... No?
I'd like to retract.
Thank you. Any other or what is the word? Private members' business. That's not the word, but yes, it's okay. I'll go try.
I know I've already spoken a lot, so I'll keep it, but this is much more exciting. I would like to propose a motion that we are all very excited about the ripples and gravitational waves of this government.
I didn't hear that after that, so... Black holes was...
And it's very exciting.
Okay.
So black holes. Einstein's theory is being proven.
Okay.
Would anyone like to comment on the fact that the black holes gravitational waves in black holes?
It's not really a comment, it's just there's a lot of theory and a lot of research being going on since September.
Good.
And our lecturer who's been part of that is told us before the conference started that it pretty much was true that they had discovered gravitational waves.
Okay.
So it was pretty interesting to find out before the rest of the world.
Cool.
Sure. That's a comment, isn't it?
Yes, that's a comment. Maybe you're like to clarify for the House. We didn't.
4-1 for space time. Space time.
Yes, Johnny.
Could I ask Ms. Stratful a clarification question?
Yes.
Could I ask if you, by the word excited, that is value neutral? Because I'm quite terrified about it because it proves that black holes exist. But that is a form of excitation. So,
I am also terrified, but I've also spent the week learning how to build computers. So in a room by myself watching videos. So nothing to do with that was very exciting.
I like the inflection in that. I spent a week learning to build a computer in my room. Yeah. Any comments on black holes?
Could I propose an amendment?
If you stand up, yes.
I'd like to change the wording of the motion. Very excited to very concerned.
So now like a second Harry's amendment.
Can I give one information?
Yes.
Black holes aren't anything to be scared of unless you are incredibly close to them. They exert no gravitational force at all on you. If the sun is a black hole, we wouldn't fall into the center of it. They don't eat everything around them. That's not what they are. So.
I just want to point on that. If they are dangerous to the things that are right next to them, that will make them grow where they will become dangerous to more things.
I'm less close to having you neutered.
Black holes evaporate over time with Hawking radiation, so they get smaller.
Just a point. Could you stand up and like audibly say your point? Okay, so I believe we're voting on the motion that this house is concerned. Would someone like to second Harry's amendment to Sophie's proposed?
No. Second.
Concerned. Anyone against the fact that we're concerned? I think it was James.
Nothing to be afraid of.
Is there a majority that's against that? Can you raise your hands? Against concern.
Oh, damn. Concerned is both positive.
We're going to move on after this one. Okay. You can stand up and offer a point on Harry's proposed amendment, which is this house would be concerned with the fact that they find gravitational waves.
Alright, so being concerned or excited or happy or whatever doesn't change the fact that it exists or doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like,
True, but it changes the records in our minutes. Somebody care about it.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so
black holes are more
so is your proposed amendment that the literature shouldn't care about finding gravitational?
No, I stick with excited.
Excited. It's a backward start. Okay, we're gonna vote on this house is excited that we find gravitational fields of black holes because there wasn't a majority. So could everyone who agrees with that please raise your hand and say aye? Aye. It's unbelievable. 21? And all of those against say nay. Jeez. 4?
I don't even know what it is.
And all of those abstaining? 6.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on from private members' business then. We've got
Literally tiny. Does anybody have like an Apple Lightning cable, for iPhone 5s that upwards 5 bars? Anyone?
The fuck is a lightning cable?
Does anybody have
a charger?
Does anybody have an Apple Lightning cable so that he can charge for the
cable for 5th gen iPhones are above?
Joseph.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Moving on, questions. Anybody got any? Please say. Yes.
When are we going to start the debate?
Okay. Yes.
I move that we just start the debate now.
Yes. If you do have any questions, we would.
Yes.
Done. Right, okay. As you can see, we have extra speakers on either side today, so we're going to have 5-minute speeches, which you'll all be glad to hear. So, same rules as always, 5-minute speeches, first and last minute are protected, which you will hear by me ringing this bell whenever I can figure out how to work it. And if you have a point of information, please be quiet. If you have a point of information in the middle 3 minutes, please stand up and say on that point, sir, on the pipeline, and if they say no, it's up to the speaker whether they accept or reject the point. No barracking, don't ask questions in succession, or too quickly in succession, and I think that's about it. We'll have questions and answers at the end. That was it, fine. So I would like to welcome the first speaker for the proposition to open the debate on this house would have the right to bear arms in the UK, which is Mr. Harry Adair.
Good evening, friends and literates. First, I'm really happy to see most people turned out tonight. It's really good to see got some energy going, even if it's towards gravitational waves. Okay, so what I aim to do, and hopefully the rest of the proposition will follow up on, is to present a credible moral and practical case for the liberalisation of gun laws in the UK. To this end, I will go into 2 points mainly. That is, first, building the case that people have an inalienable right to self-defense, and then moving from there towards a practical, credible proposal for how we would work that out. What a right to bear arms in the UK would really actually function. So let's get stuck in. Yes, a man's right to own a gun, most notably in the United States, but in other countries, is based fundamentally on the human right to self-defense and the ability to fend off those that would violate their personal security and their family security. So, where would we gain the justification for such a right? Well, it's laid out clearly in both EU and British law in that it is out there to promote the right to both family and freedom from fear, life and personal security. And that's mirrored in the United States Declaration of Human Rights, Article 3 specifically, which, quote, "Everyone has a right to life, liberty and the security of person." So it can be reasonably expected of most people that a person has a right to life. So we can extrapolate that further.
At that point,
come on.
Yeah. So if the person has a right to life, why are you going to give them guns which can potentially end it?
Well, I'm going to go straight into why that is crucial, the crux of what I'm going to get at. Specifically, if a man has a right to his life, and if we've accepted that, then they should have the practical capability to actually defend it, and actually... I didn't develop this fully. Against those who violate his rights. So this is the 10-second outline, or when someone is in dire need to protect their vitals. But with that right, and with that obligation to ensure their own personal security, there is an obligation that they are properly trained and properly equipped and ready for if such a situation is required. So then that logically follows that you cannot drive a wedge between the moral impossibility of life and the physical means by which that is enacted, as in the ability to own a personal firearm and to hold off a would theoretical attacker. I need to finish this. And if a man chooses to argue for a right and then denies the capability to enact it, they have unfairly represent an explicit dichotomy between their personal values and the facts and the reality of the situation. So now that we have developed a framework for understanding why it is an obligation for a state to respect its rights, as my colleague Stefan will develop fully, how would such an amendment look, or how would such a right in the UK look? Well, first of all, it is, as the motion states, a right. It is an able one. So, but to that end, a right comes with obligations. You have a right to participate in the democratic process, provided that you put your name and details forward and fulfill the requirements. So, one of those requirements, as we see time and time again with firearms, is the need for properly trained and properly maintained. So we're talking restrictions on trade. I mean, the argument that certain types of weapons can't be restricted is not true, considering the priority for what the moral justification is self-defense. So a proportional response would then be a fire, not some kind of WMD or explosives. I'm sure the opposition would like to remind us of. But to summarise, we need a proper understanding of the rights and a realistic application of them to properly institute the principles by which our governments are theoretically bound by. The observation of different types of weapons and the understanding of what actually happens on the ground, as the rest of my team will fully go into, sorry for holding you, makes gun rights a legitimate cause in a free society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harry. And I would like to welcome first opposition for this evening, Mr. Richie Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President, and thanks everyone here today. Just a few points in response to what was said there. The linking of the right to have a gun with what you said. There's an obligation by the government, the right to self-defense, a human right. Whenever the statistics prove that you're more likely to use that gun yourself or a member of your family, sort of contradicts that argument, I believe. But I'm going to start off by sharing with you a story. On December 14th, 2012, in a primary school in Shenzhen, Japan, a man burst into the school and stabbed 24 people, including 23 children. Now this got a bit overshadowed in the media, and understandably so, because it was the same day as the 14th of December 2012 that Adam Lanza shot 20 children and 6 adults in his nearby elementary school with a semi-automatic machine gun. The difference between the two stories is that no one died in the Japan story. Every one of those children lived to tell the tale, and everyone Adam Lanza shot in Sandy Hook died. This is but one example, and I understand I understand it's one point, but it is one of many. And it's one reason why I plead you to go easy on the proposition tonight, because they truly have a monumental task in their hands. They have to convince us that the right to bear arms should be exported to the United Kingdom. To do this, they have to somehow convince us that the UK's decision to enforce some of the toughest anti-gun legislation in the world in the wake of the Dunblane massacre in 1996 was a bad idea. This is in spite of a 53% decrease in crimes involving guns since the introduction of that legislation by John Major's government. They have to convince us that the United Kingdom should adopt gun legislation from the United States, a country where you're 3 times more likely to be murdered. In fact, on average, you're 3 times more likely to be murdered in the United States than any other country that could be considered Western and advanced. Another statistic...
On that point, sir.
Go ahead.
Is that not down to other factors in the United States, such as extreme social inequality, such as ghettos, crime being one of the main perpetrators of violence, and also a very strange sort of culture in the United States around guns, which includes commercialism and capitalism. In fact, you can buy a gun in Walmart. You have never been able to buy a gun in Asda here, except in Lorne.
No one is saying that there isn't other factors that make up. There is the social inequality is one, but to say social inequality doesn't exist in parts of other countries where they put America to shame, and that statistic is testament of the fact that guns are very likely a cause of that statistic. Another statistic that often gets overlooked in this debate is the statistic that you are twice as likely to commit suicide in the United States as you are in the United Kingdom. As the majority of suicides in the United States are by the way of a gun, this is important. So I really don't understand why anyone would think that adopting any legislation from the United States in regard to any of this would be a good idea. The proposition have to convince us as well that what they believe to be their individual right to have a gun somehow trumps the lives of possibly thousands of people. On that point. Sorry, I have to get through it. They have to convince us that this libertarian ideology, the right to bear arms, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, isn't self-defeating and plain stupid. In the United States, you're much more likely to use a gun on yourself or a family member than you are on a bad guy. A cop is much more likely to use a gun on you precisely because he's been trained to assume you have one than you are to use it on a bad guy. And it might be going off on a bit of a tangent here, but because there is statistically more guns in America than there is people, I can't really fault this approach by the police, in all honesty. And this is an example of how the lack of gun control underpins so much of America's problems. The proposition also have to convince us that there is some sort of appetite for or jealousy towards America's Second Amendment right. The fact that there is a significant voice in the US calling for gun control and on this side of the Atlantic not a whimper in favour of extending the right to bear arms says it all, really. We're happy with the statistics we see before us. Thank you very much. And finally, even if they do manage to convince you of all of this, they have to persuade you that all things considered, to still take the chance of extending the right to bear arms in the UK, and I, for one, am not going to take that risk. So you can find it.
Thank you very much. And you didn't like that speech.
The first point I want to make is that just because guns are dangerous, it doesn't remove a fundamental right, even if they are dangerous. Like, for example, you have the right to drive your car. If you were to get into your car without a seatbelt on, that's a lot more dangerous than having a gun in your house. Even if you're to walk home tonight, you have a right to have a drink tonight after the debate. If you have a few drinks and then you walk home tonight, that's dangerous. On the issue of suicide, you ignore the fact that by removing guns, it doesn't actually. All that happens is that it just leads to an increase in other methods. For example, in the UK, it leads to an increase in hanging and fumigation in South Korea. You also assume that we're just going to be handing out guns, like you could just go into a shop and buy them easily. No, this would only be to responsible individuals who have been gone through proper background checks that will be discussed with one of the later speakers. The opposition's debate is based on emotion, not a rational argument, which will now be discussed. Also, as Stefan pointed out to me, it's nearly impossible to actually accidentally shoot yourself with a modern gun, like the way the design will actually explain it.
You can't.
Sorry, I didn't need to go on with this. I will explain to the House why individuals should have the right to bear arms in the United Kingdom. The argument I will make is that individuals should be entitled to exercise a right to bear arms for the purpose of self-defence and deterrence against crime, and specifically violent crime. The primary reason individual self-defence using weapons is not strongly emphasised in the context of European society is due to historical reasons. Modern Europe emerged from the feudal system in which security was controlled by the land mobility that would protect serfs in exchange for manual labour. This is in stark contrast to revolutionary America, which depended upon citizen militias for defence at both an individual level and external level. The reason I have decided to start my argument at this point is to illustrate that restrictions on the right to bear arms in Europe is not to protect individuals from each other, but is based on tradition in which weapons are concentrated in the hands of the ruling classes and to limit their ownership amongst the population. I've decided to explain to the House that the benefit of guns for protection against crime is due to the rational nature in which crimes are committed. For example, James Holmes, the Aurora shooter, chose the Century 16 Theatre to commit a mass shooting, not because it was the closest cinema or the largest cinema, but because it was the only... Sorry, go on.
He was also a big viewer of Fox News. And on Work's case, he was... Just because he voluntarily chose...
Is that relevant?
No, it is because he voluntarily chose a suspect.
It's not relevant. It's speculation. There could be something to it, but it's speculation. But when mass shootings themselves are not rational, it shows that the way in which they're calculated is rational. For example, just a few days ago, a terror suspect, Kahal Abu Rayyan, was arrested for attempting to commit a mass shooting in a Detroit church and said on social media, quote, "A lot of people go there, plus people are not allowed to carry guns in church." While this is only one particular type of violent crime, the examples clearly illustrate that criminals prefer soft targets where there is less resistance. Now we must consider the reverse scenario in which the potential victim is armed. Because of their capacity to defend themselves, potential crimes against them become less rational. In a study of 1,874 prisoners, Professors James Wright and Peter Rossi found 81% of smart criminals were tried to determine if a potential victim is armed. 74% indicated burglars would avoid occupied houses for fear of being shot. 57% said most criminals feared armed citizens more than police, and 40% said no thank you. 40% said they were deterred from committing a crime because they believed the potential victim was armed. From the study, Wright and Rossi concluded that armed citizens have a beneficial effect in reducing criminal behaviour. In a separate study, Dr. Gary Kleck from Florida State University found that gun use was the most effective and safest way of resisting a robbery or assault, in fact even safer than surrendering or running away. What distinguishes guns as a tool of self-defence is that it tilts the balance of power in favour of the possessor, regardless of physical strength. A quote from the American frontier summarises this as, "God created men, Samuel Colt made them equal." Therefore, this means that people who are particularly vulnerable to violent crimes due to a lack of physical strength or a societal perception of weakness would disproportionately benefit from the right to bear arms. In Northern Ireland, elderly people would be among the primary demographics that this would benefit from, the right to bear arms due to the vulnerability of elderly people to violent home invasions. A Belfast Telegraph article from October states the number of domestic burglary victims aged 60 or over has risen by more than a third in 2015. According to the latest PSNI statistics, from April to the start of September, there were 606 recorded offences, compared to 445 over the same 6-month period in 2014, a rise of 36%. Because guns equalises the balance of power in a conflict scenario, it would mean elderly people could effectively defend their homes and themselves without being entirely dependent upon a police response, which in some cases may not be possible before it's too late. It is also worth mentioning that guns would greatly empower. It is also worth mentioning that women would be greatly empowered from the right to bear arms. It is a disgrace that women are. Can I just finish off?
Very quickly.
Okay. It is a disgrace that women are unable to avail of the same freedoms of movement as men due to fear of criminal actions against them. An example of this is in 1986, the City of Orlando offered firearm training classes for women in response to a wave of sexual assaults. Within 1 year, the number of sexual assaults drastically decreased, most notably rapes dropped by 90%. Evidence also shows that when a woman was armed, only 3% of rapes were completed. Furthermore, the probability of serious injury from violence is 2.5 times greater. I can't finish. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome the second speaker for the opposition, Mr. Andrew Hanlon.
I didn't realize I was just at the speaker. That's okay. Hold on. Right, so my dear friends, I thank you for the opportunity to lend me your ears tonight. We live in a society where we thankfully don't have to assume that our neighbor is carrying a semi-automatic or anti-tank weapon and could potentially end our lives on the basis of a crazed shooting spree or for simple self-defense. This is because we've learned lessons. We've learned lessons from the tragic Hungerford massacre, and we've learned lessons from the Dunblane school shootings, and most of all, we've learned from that great chunk of land across the pond known only as America. You see, in 1987, 1996, and 2010, the dates of the Hungerford, Dunblane, and Cumbria massacres, respectively, when the government decided it would enact even stricter controls on gun ammunition, we said resoundingly, sure, it seems like a good deal, but in America, the land would be free, where school and other public shootings seem to be more than a frequent occurrence. People still believe that these events pale in comparison to their need to, and I say this in quote, protect themselves and their families. I ask tonight, would they need to protect themselves and their families if guns weren't so readily available to the public?
On that point,
yeah.
Well, I mean, we saw most notably with the Paris tax that these weapons are still floating around in the illegal market. To this end, would it not be a contradiction to claim that to get legal wouldn't cause that problem?
I know what you're saying, yeah, but these people were in a country. You think these people had the guns in their holster ready to, like, if there was guns were legal, you think the people had guns in their holster ready to just defend against terrorism? No, they would not. They would have had to leave their guns outside, and they would have had the same consequence. So, this isn't about America, obviously, because we may draw some parallels, and we've talked about crazy maniacs being able to go into Tesco in Newton Breed or Aston Larn or whatever you like to purchase instruments of mortality. But I mean, obviously the club card points must be phenomenal. But like, imagine the mayhem and a perilous society that would be sanctioned by such a wanton move. Because rights are a funny thing. We have fought for many justifiable ones in the course of our nation's history. But when we are fighting for the right to bear arms, don't be mistaken by the pretense of self-defense or the ability to protect ourselves. We don't know what we are capable of. I mean, I can feel really... I can feel really happy one day and walk into a store and get a shiny new assault rifle or pistol and feel that I'm now protected from my neighbors, co-workers, or the Conservative Party, or any other threats in the country. But that security won't last. Because we have our days when we don't feel so good, like the days when we feel that the world is a terrible place, like nothing in our lives is going right. And on those days that we're most dangerous, I mean, not all of us are going to take out the gun every day and shoot ourselves or somebody else, but you never know because life is pretty grim. All right, now. And how about that guy that keeps calling their significant others late at night? I mean, what if he does something that really pisses you off one day? In your irrational moment, are you going to think about self-defense? So, I mean, let me give you a scenario. Sure, if a Michael Jackson tribute artist moonwalked through your child's bedroom window one night, you wanted to protect your kids from that smooth criminal. So, you to pull your rifle out off the shelf and make this predator beat it. But when you enter the room, you see that he's pointing the gun at you as well. And you instantly regret your stance on gun laws, since you remember he was behind you in the queue at Tesco to get his gun as well. I mean, fake MJ could have gone on the black market and sourced a gun, but no thug sure as hell would sell it to a guy who came in grabbing his crotch and uttering high-pitched squeals at the end of every sentence. The major point to note is that many people wouldn't even be able to afford one if they were illegal and thus in limited supply. There was an appeal to feminism given there by these pro-gun activists that insinuated rapes perpetrated in gun-free zones in the US are the fault of the law for prohibiting the woman to be armed at all times. But as a true feminist, I say that's all rubbish. How about creating a society where women don't need to worry about where women don't need to worry about rapists striking out of nowhere? Access to gun for self-defense, but so could the guy who wanted to rape her. So who do you think is going to be more prepared in that stance? If you love guns to quell your paranoia or to make up for an anatomical defect, then admit it. Because that's about the only reason you've got in this gun debate. If you wanted to protect yourself, you would have to have it ready 24/7, always ready for that moment of attack. Unless the UK was a Call of Duty map, you're not going to have that privilege. But then I hear you say in your relentless paranoia that the government and military can turn against us, so we need to fight back. But our AR-15s and AK-47s are no match for Apache helicopters, tanks and fighter jets. Your best bet is probably just voting Lib Dem next time. So don't be fooled. You aren't as safe as you think you are. And you do not need guns. And if you need one, the police can give you a license, in which case you've probably been a bit bad yourself. So oppose this vexatious argument, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Before I welcome the final or the third speaker of the proposition, could you please just keep it down while people are speaking and just be respectful? Thank you. Thanks very much, next week. So yeah, now I welcome the third speaker for the proposition, Mr. Stefan Ivanitsky.
Ladies and gentlemen, the opposition here are selling a lie of firearms being an infernal machine which, once awoken, will slay your firstborn. They are calling for a complete ban of anything they saw in GTA or Call of Duty. They might as well ban alcohol and contraception, or consumption of meat, because I assure you that those bans would be much easier to exercise. Firearms never do take away the threat of violence or death. A ban on handguns will not prevent you from getting stabbed. Nor will prohibition stop you from consuming alcohol. Opposition is playing on your fears, while Owen spoke facts. Northern Ireland is one of the countries where it's easiest to obtain an illegal firearm. And also, anyone in this room, upon showing their driving license, can buy a legal 50 caliber revolver. Or you can even convert a nail gun or make your own gun from scratch. To make a taser, all you need is to break open a camera. To make a Gauss gun, you will just need a few more cameras.
Sir?
Of course, come.
Is there no reason we're safe from these all MacGyver contraptions, the fact that we trust our fellow citizens not to be murderous?
There's really nothing for guns.
Directly on
See, I think you should be sitting here on our side of the table. Because some basic plumbing will allow anyone to make a handgun or a cannon. And now 3D printing allows you to make whatever gun you like overnight. As my colleagues outlined, the right to bear arms will only afflict responsible, God-fearing and law-abiding citizens who will have access to weapons for whatever function they choose. In the extreme boredom of the run to the maths exam, I looked at the issue of the EU firearms license. It means that an adult is able to legally buy, own and shoot a pre-1870 firearm. And I became mortified. Those are the weapons with which the carnage of the American Civil War happened. Those weapons decimated a generation of French and Germans at Sedan, Metz and the Rhine. And any person here can go and buy these tomorrow. A .50 caliber, unjacketed revolver, or a repeating rifle could be bought with your student loan, and any single terrorist or disgruntled student could use them to wipe out everyone in this room right now with legally bought guns in a matter of seconds.
But then, if you're saying that, then you're probably insinuating that we should have tighter gun controls to get rid of that, which is what I agree with.
Of course, I will move on. Those are an EU-wide thing. Any country in the EU which has the most lax gun controls applies to here. But no massacres have happened in Europe despite those deadly weapons being available. Those weapons are being sold and bought in the tens of thousands right now, and they are only being legally used, please.
Can you explain the massacre that happened in Norway?
Yes, that was a hunting rifle. That was not one of the 1870 firearm. It was not an old.
On that point.
And how come? Could I ask for a minute extension?
No, we'll stick with 5 minute speeches this week.
How come, if those guns are deadly and readily available, we are not getting shot? Could be that the media and the opposition are proving the facts to sow fear in our hearts. If guns throughout Europe are being used safely, why is it our right of self-determination and self-defense is being denied? As my colleagues have said, the denial of God-given rights is the first characteristic of a totalitarian state. Before the rise of totalitarianism in Europe, the only weapon that was regulated was a breakdown carbine for fear of poaching. The opposition are using extreme cases while forgetting that over a million crimes were prevented in America alone last year because of the threat of the use of a weapon by the victim. I beseech everyone in this room, especially the voting members, to not be the deaf led by the blind. To open your hearts and minds to the idea that you can be your own master. Your life could be in your own hands, and you should not depend on your political and business overlords to decide whether you should only be able to receive help in 15 minutes or half an hour at the threat of violence. Politicians have special branch. Millionaires have bodyguards with full automatic weapons. And here in the opposition, we have a strong, and here the opposition to the motion has a strong interest in keeping you in fear and defenseless. Let us remember that our freedoms were won through revolution, using mostly personal arms. So I ask you to vote for yourself and for the proposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And continuing with the opposition is Mr. Jason Bunting.
Madam President, distinguished guests, honoured opposition, I'm an opposition delegate. Just one quick point for you all before going. You seem to be insinuating at the start that we already have alcohol's probably going to kill us, so why not just bring a deadly weapon into it? We already have some guns, so let's just import them all from our market. It doesn't really hold up, I don't think. I'm here tonight to discuss a phenomenon which kills 90 people a day in America. We're here to discuss a phenomenon which kills 33,000 a year. It has killed children in primary schools, it's killed people watching movies in cinemas, it has ruined lives and torn apart a political system. And now we're arguing that it shouldn't be imported into the UK because it doesn't sound great. The proposition is going through a lot of political heavy terms. They're going to talk about libertarianism, they're going to talk about George Washington, they're going to talk about George Bush. And to give them due credit, some of them will make sense. But after the glossy terms have sort of vanished from your mind, I ask that you reflect.
On that point, sir.
Yeah, go for it.
We aren't mentioning any ideologies. We are completely neutral. He says we're talking about feminism, you say we're talking about libertarianism, we're just talking common sense and facts.
Well, I totally refute that because you were talking about the rights of women to equal men. That sounds like feminism to me. And this gentleman was talking about being free. That just sounds like libertarianism to me. Just because you don't use the actual word doesn't mean you're not referring to it. So the first responsibility of any government, just to move on, is to protect its citizens. And gun control saves lives. That's the most important thing you have to take away from this debate. The fact that the UK does not have the right to bear arms right now is saving lives. We can't really honestly say that more homicides occur in America because more Americans are homicidal. It doesn't make sense. There are reasons why you see such terrible statistics on the news. There's reasons why there's repeated that the response to every sort of massacre is so predictable because we see them all the time coming from America. We don't see it coming from America. Yes, go for it.
With respect to the opposition, I really haven't heard the proposition making an argument that we're trying to import anything. I think it's understandable to say that the UK is a totally different society to that of America.
Here. Well, I'm saying we're importing not like literally the guns, but we're importing the idea that anybody should be able to own a gun. So I'm talking about another ideology, but I know you don't. So the right to bear arms is an outdated, useless, but moreover dangerous souvenir from a time of revolution. We're not in a revolution anymore, and we don't need a well-regulated militia. So I want to address an argument that says that criminals don't obey the law, so why pass any laws about gun control? That doesn't make sense to me because it's like saying that because criminals have a natural proclivity to burgle someplace that we shouldn't try and stop them from stealing things. I don't really understand that.
On that point, well, with the deepest respect, I don't think you've particularly been paying attention to what the propositions brought forward. What we've said is we understand the fact that a priori that these violent crimes exist and that they certainly play a role. I mean, to what extent you can regulate that with social factors is unnecessary. But what we said specifically was that the prevalence of them and the prevalence of it escalating to a situation is fundamentally less than if you have a well-regulated state of firearms being in rotation. I mean, the statistic he used was 80% of criminals would not go through with it if they knew he was armed. So how do you respond to that, fundamentally?
Because the idea that by giving everyone guns we're going to stop less people shooting, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, we don't need a well-regulated militia. And people often say, we have a right to bear arms, but they forget the first part. Also, I would just like to pick up on a couple of things we've already said, but the rate of suicides is double in states with less stringent gun control, and in America a child between the ages of 5 and 14 are 17 times more likely to die by a gun accident. So in conclusion, because I have to finish up, we encourage the House to reject the idea that deadly weapons should be legalised, and we further encourage the House to reject the extremist-led debate that is suggesting that more guns will lessen the risk that you're going to die by a gun crime. And we're rejecting the violent rhetoric as well. So the only other thing I would say is that 91% of the American public support background checks. So Congress rejecting this proposal is actually a Democratic violation. So I'm going to leave you with the words of the beloved woman herself, Hillary Clinton, who says, "I don't know how we keep seeing shooting after shooting. Read about the people murdered because they went to Bible study, or they went to the movies, or they were just doing their job, and not finally say, we've got to do something about this. That something cannot be to bring this culture to the UK." Thank you very much.
We did just another round of applause for his maiden speech. To close the proposition.
Thank you. My Nigel Farage impression. Firstly, the United States and Paris has no relevance to the UK because the United States is a very strange culture around guns. For a vast majority of their people just assume that tyranny is just around the corner. That does not apply to the UK. There is a strange population of the Shankill Roaders in republicanism is just around the corner. But they certainly don't speak for the rest of 70 million people in this here. And also, the Second Amendment, a lot of the problem of the gun debate in the US seems to stem from the fact that a lot of Americans can't read. and the ones that can choose not to. The Second Amendment is explicit in what it says. It says a well-regulated militia, being necessary for the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, James Madison and Alexander Hamilton were pretty smart guys, and I'm pretty sure for a well-regulated militia they did not mean 3 guys in a pickup truck in the car park of the local Walmart. No, thank you, just think started. What they meant was, because this, in the context of times before there was a police force or even street lamps, essentially what they meant was the National Guard or the Army or even the police, which we all have nowadays. Also, what was ignored by most speakers, except for Stefan, who alluded to it in some way, is that it is already perfectly legal to buy a gun in the UK. There are, in fact, 2 million gun licenses currently registered in the country. No, thank you. Just we have sensible gun legislation, which has worked very well, because since the Don Blaine massacre, I can count mass shootings on one hand. I can count mass shootings using guns bought legally on one finger. I was thinking about this debate before, I was brought to mind the first debate of this year, which was this House would legalise marijuana. I can't remember, if I could just have a quick show of hands, who was there?
I was speaking.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. Anyway, another quick show of hands, who would support the legalisation of some or any drugs? From marijuana right up to heroin, whatever. One or another. Really surprisingly few. Who supports the prohibition of alcohol? Fair enough. Is your mind swayed at all by the fact that alcohol, various drugs, often lead to violence or various health disorders? Nothing. But it seems different. The case is just different for this debate in particular, for guns.
On that
point, nothing.
One
yes.
forward, sir.
What? Yes, sir.
Just because something doesn't happen less doesn't mean it doesn't happen too much. I don't care if it can be counted in one hand, I wish it didn't have to be counted at all.
I'll get to that later. The case here doesn't seem to be about human safety or indeed personal liberty, which is a ridiculous point. The case seems to boil down to there are some people who just like guns and some people who don't. And those two groups don't like each other very much at all. When it comes to guns, drugs and abortion as well, we all know that we can't eradicate these things from our society, but the most we can do is to make them as safe as humanly possible, which the UK has done. Since in this year alone, which is only 2 months old, bear in mind, there have been 5,500 incidents of gun violence in the United States. Whereas if you take the countries of the UK, Germany, Denmark, Switzerland, Australia, Scandinavia and Japan, you will find a population roughly the size of the United States, yet year in, year out, they very seldom exceed triple figures in incidents of gun violence. It is clear that current legislation is working. It is not perfect. But the problem with our current legislation on guns really comes from the more chaotic nature of the British Constitution. The fact that we have an uncodified constitution, which I think is a good idea, but legislation on guns is based on 4 separate acts that take place over the past 100 years. So the Firearms Act of 1963, how does that relate to air guns? Or something which quite often can cause fatalities if they're shot close range in the ear or the eye, or guns that are used in broadcasts by actors. There should be some kind of modern sort of update to gun reform, but broadly it is working.
there. Is it, give me a moment.
You've had 40 extra seconds.
Yes,
Wrap it up, please.
it's not entirely perfect, but find me a law that is, and I will find you a unicorn making love to Norman Lamont.
Thank you very much. Please contact Ben after the debate if you would like that last image. And close to the opposition.
I'll send you the link to my Tumblr.
Close to the debate this evening, Mr. Jeremy Mueller.
Well, first of all, Finbar, I'd just like to say that I think we're coming at the issue from a similar perspective, but we're interpreting the motion differently. And I would say that fundamentally what the motion says is that the right to bear arms should be something similar to the Second Amendment in the United States, which is more of a natural right, something that comes before any kind of permit or any kind of license. And so I would have to disagree with the motion, but perhaps agree with you on a few points. There's a question to consider for this debate, I think, and it's relevant to this issue. What is the main function of the state? Is it simply there to uphold fairness and equal freedom? Or is it something more? Do we accept that there are some goods beyond this that the state is justified in securing? And I believe the primary function of the state goes beyond simply providing a framework for equal autonomy. So instead, I believe the prime goal of the state, and I think if we reflect on this for a moment, we would see that this is what underpins our welfare system. I wrote here, I should look at Craig, but he's not here. Our welfare system, our laws, our democracy. Something we agree upon, which is that the state, its primary function, is to secure the life and health of its citizens. Even the liberalist positions, even the classical liberals, the most liberal people that were there for hundreds of years, Locke, John Locke, political philosophers, when he wrote the rights of man, or what would now be more correct, the rights of, politically correct, the rights of people, when he wrote this, he said the rights to life, liberty, and property are inalienable. But he said the right to life, and he said it first. Now, if we agree that this is primary, that this has priority, it follows that whatever policy we enact should not undermine it, but should facilitate it. And I propose that that is exactly what this motion does. It undermines this. And we can throw statistics at each other. We can compare homicide rates across time or different countries that had different levels of gun control in place. And to some extent, that might work. There's always going to be the argument that people would find another way to murder, even in situations where they don't have access to guns. And if there's just one victim, I would agree, perhaps, that it is an argument you might listen to. But there are certain kinds of murders, certain kinds of crimes, certain kinds of mass shootings that are simply not possible on the scale and with the severity that they happen. They're simply not possible if certain kinds of guns, if firearms aren't accessible. Now, let's just think about... I'd just like to continue. If that's okay. Let's think about what the right to bear arms would bring to the UK. And let's think about what it has brought in places like America, where I'm going to talk about Newtown again. I'm sorry I'm saturating people with this, or our team is. We just mentioned it twice. But a guy named Adam Lanza, he was able to shoot 155 rounds in under 5 minutes, and I did my research. I've checked that. I double checked it, because it surprised me. 155 rounds from 30 round magazines. That means, for those of you who are slightly less literate in gun parts, he's able to shoot 30 times before he has to reload. There's no way to rush someone like that. So I disagree with this motion, not only because it would increase the availability of guns available in the UK.
On that point.
Nothing. But particularly, it would increase the right or the types of firearms that would be available to general citizens, and more people would most certainly die, if not in the case of the average homicide, then in the case of severe mass shootings, which make the news all the time in the States.
On that point?
Sure.
We keep coming back here. We keep coming back to this emotive argument of the instinct of mass shootings. What I argue is that with just one exception, every mass shooting in the USA has happened in a gun-free zone. And these allusions to America do a disservice to what we say.
I see what you're saying. A key difference is the prevalence of guns that are available in the United States versus in the UK. Now, I'm not advocating any kind of gun policy for the US. This is a motion about the UK, and in the UK there are only about 3.9 guns per 100 people compared to 101 in the United States. There is no need for any kind of that problem which you mentioned does not apply here. But so I'm going to try and continue as quickly as I can. These kind of firearms would be available in the UK with this kind of legislation. Semi-automatic rifles and semi-automatic pistols that were banned in wake of recent shootings. Why would they become available? Because in some sense, making it a right to bear arms, a natural right, that inhibits the state from imposing restrictions because the state needs to demonstrate a verifiable and significant risk to take that right away from you, to justify restricting your right, rather than what should be the case, which is that you should demonstrate a reason and a capability to have a firearm. I mean, we don't have people we don't give people the right to drive a car. They need to pass a test. They can't be blind. I have nothing against blind people, but it's the way it is. So I would like to end with a call for pragmatism, a call for sensible policy, and I would like to say that we should never let the importance of someone's freedom to own a gun undermine someone else's right to life.
Very quickly to we have 2 rounds of questions. So if anybody go proposition, opposition, and then abstaining motion. So if anybody would like to ask a question to the proposition, which is this side of the guys, please stand up, state your name for the minutes. Yes.
Yes, proposition. Sorry. The first speaker's argument was basically the issue with gun-free zones is that to solve that we'll have lots of good guys with lots of guns. Now the problem with the good guy argument is that there's statistical research that says even if you're professionally trained with a gun, like policemen, your accuracy rate, even professionally trained, will never go over 50% unless you're in someone with the SAS. The fact is, if you're a good guy with a gun, you're less likely to hit the shooter. When the police turn up, we have many white males with guns. That happens to be quite a large proportion of America. You instantly make yourself a suspect. So you're actually creating more danger for you and the rest of the people around you than you are if you allow, if it's just the one person with the gun, or if you take guns away from everyone's gun. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Brief response from the proposition, please.
That's a fair point. What I was trying to get at, though, was to develop that more in the direction of it wasn't so much, the classic tired, good guy with gun, bad guy with gun, because that's honest situation. That's not going to happen. This is a very simple dichotomy. What we were proposing was the very instinct. There's no coincidence. This keeps happening in gun-free zones. It's because they know there will be no opposition, and to begin with. So in the practical reality of it, even though, as you correctly stated, the accuracy will be less than a coordinated SWAT unit, which is used to doing this sort of thing, what happens is there is a general decline in situations actually happening. That was the main practical crux of our argument. But yeah, apart from that, fair point.
Thank you very much. We'll skip responses just for this week because it's quite long. Okay. Does anyone have any questions to the opposition? That's these 4 lovely guys here.
Well, this was going to be an abstaining point, but if no one else is going to. I know I left in the middle for a couple of minutes, so if somebody did bring this up, please correct me, but there's been a lot, particularly from the opposition, about importing a right from America and emulating America in this respect. America got its Second Amendment from the British example, the British tradition, particularly the 1689 Bill of Rights, which actually does create the right to bear arms, albeit only for Protestants, but the point I would make is that the UK already does have that right, and it is a English tradition rather than an American innovation.
One response to the opposition, please.
You see, we've changed a lot of things from 1689 that America has not changed, and we know that. I mean, because I come from Trinidad and Tobago, we basically copy and pasted everything from the English law book, like the Constitution, into our law. We never amended it, and because of that, we homosexuality is punished by I don't know whatever it is. We have a lot of civil rights that you all don't enjoy. that you all enjoy here, because of the fact that you all have amended it and you've done that very well, and you all should be proud of yourselves because of that. And America hasn't done that, and we should not be using that as an example because we've learned from them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. If somebody's responding, if you don't mind, no responses is good. In the bar, house bar afterwards, stay there right now. Do we have any points abstaining on the motion, sort of general points on the debate on the motion? Yes. Stand up, statement for minutes, please.
Jimmy Cargill. I'm wondering what both sides think of the argument that we need an armed proletariat to, in case of an oppressive government, it needs to be taken on.
Thank you. One response by the time, please. Please keep it down when you're speaking.
Yes, I would believe that if the people are capable of using force, then a government which decides to become oppressive will have that avenue of using force against the people close to itself.
It only applies to the US and not the UK.
There's no responses then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a response from the opposition on that point, please?
Again, I think this has been touched upon, but in what such a scenario could you possibly imagine an armed proletariat, as you described, having
the troubles?
They're not he said the troubles with them.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're not going to. But you're not going to fight drones. You're not going to fight the whatever military the British Army have. You're not going to make an imprint on the British war machine. Like, so why would you
tell that to the
okay, thank you. Please. Okay, last round of questions. Can we please? No, right. You can respond in the bar, house bar. Say about 9 o'clock if we all can get out of here. So, this side, okay, do we have a question? Final question for the proposition before we continue? Anyone else spoken? Yes.
So it's kind of been variously proven that wearing a cycle helmet makes you more likely to cycle dangerously. Having a knife makes you more likely to commit knife crime. So why is it that having a gun makes you less likely to commit a gun crime?
Brief response from the proposition, please.
For a start there, hang on. I own several knives in my kitchen. I've never stabbed anyone. Though I've been sorely tempted on many occasions. Again, one thing I forgot to mention was there are considerable background checks in the UK which they just don't have in the US. If you want to go and buy a gun in your local supermarket or another state supermarket and then take it home with you if you're on holiday, you can. But in the UK, you have to go through a vigorous process where you prove that you're responsible to own a gun. You know how to handle it. You know how to use it, and also that your past history shows that you're unlikely to shoot innocent people in the face.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a question for the opposition this side? You're just getting off easy tonight. No, we can go on to the abstentions. Any sort of general points? We can take 2 abstaining points on the motion if you like. Yes.
It's nice to be able to focus a lot on sort of human welfare and their protection, but what about sort of animals? Because I know in the US, again, in comparison, guns are allowed in like nature reserves and things like that. So how that would affect the UK in terms of animal welfare? Again, things like Africa, they're taking guns to protect the black rhino, which is now in danger of becoming extinct.
It is extinct.
Yes.
Okay, please, thank you.
Extinct, but they still exist.
Finn.
So it's just sort of your views on that.
Okay, thank you. Brief response from either side.
Yes, there should be far more protections for badgers over humans because they're cuddly, nice, and humans are bastards.
Thank you very much. Finn.
I meant illegitimate.
Okay, thank you. Brief response from the opposition, please, and then we'll just go through.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I mean, if you were to restrict the rights of of people to have guns, then there's a less likelihood of illegitimate hunting going on and killing innocent animals, which should not be the case, and causing extinctions and that sort of thing. Because if it was that we just allowed everyone to shoot shoot whatever creature we wanted to shoot, or just give them guns to to carry out whatever operation they wanted to carry out on whatever animal for whatever purpose they wanted to carry it out for, then it is completely it's asinine to assume that these creatures don't deserve some level of protection as well, and our constitution should allow for that. So I agree with your point there that animals also have a right to life, just as we have a right to life, but not the right to bear arms. So.
Thank you very much. We'll move to vote. First vote we're going to have is based on your personal opinion. So you don't have to have a membership card for this one to vote. So if you do agree with the motion and think that we should have the right to bear arms in the UK, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Oh yes, I forgot my abstain.
Yes.
I support abstaining.
Finbar, please. And if you disagree with the motion and believe you should not have the right to bear arms in the UK, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
34, I should be better at counting. And all of those abstaining.
Meh.
Yeah. I got you, Calvin. I got you. 7. Okay, and this one is the binding votes on who wins the debate and is recorded in our minutes as the sort of winning vote. So get out your shiny membership cards, which you should have to hand. And if you think that the proposition spoke better tonight on the motion, please reach your membership card and say aye. Thank you very much. You can vote for yourself. Great. Thank you.
Entirely unjustified.
And all of those who think that the opposition spoke better this evening, please raise your card and say nay. Aye. Thank you. And all those abstaining, or think they spoke equally rubbish or too good.
Really are.
6. Okay, thank you very much. So I believe that opposition has won. Before you all leave the seats, please do join us in the house bar, and if you could lift any rubbish that's around you, that would be appreciated. If there's any drink there, you can join it before we go to the conference.
It's like nervous.